A very good morning to you guys. Welcome to the Civic Forum. This is Asake Online. My name is Brighton Ncube. This show seeks to look at individuals doing amazing work in the community of Matabeleland and Lial, and so looking at organizations doing massive work in Matabeleland as well as Lial. Today on the show, we have a veteran arts administrator as well as CEO of Highlanders. Want to get to know, you may get to celebrate him in the arts sector. Good morning to you, Sihlangu Dlodlo.
Good morning, Brighton.
Right,
Thanks for having me.
Izolo, we're watching Highlanders playing against Highlanders. We lost that match. What happened in that match?
We lost.
Why did you lose that match?
I think it was one of those days we didn't play as well as we would have. Obviously, you can understand this. I'm not technical myself, but there's a lot of injuries to our first team players. So team selection was always going to be a challenge, and mental preparedness, because you are throwing in guys that are not as experienced, and yes, they played well, but it wasn't going to be the same. Yeah.
You've worked well with the late Mhlanga in terms of the arts sector over the past years at Atos Arts Theatre there. Speak to us about the journey. How was like working with Mhlanga in the arts?
Mhlanga was a very amazing man. Very amazing man. He was very creative. I think one thing that enabled me to be able to work with Con for such a long time is because he's like me in many aspects, or I'm like him. We can't stick to one idea. We keep changing. So when you work with Con, you needed to know that if you sit in a meeting and you plot a direction and you plot your milestones, the milestones can change anytime. And when they do, you better be on top of your game and be able to change. What doesn't change is the direction you are moving, but the motors will always change in terms of what are we doing first, what are we doing last, how are we doing what we are doing. Conte was a very creative man in terms of writing plays and in terms of strategic planning. But when it comes to managing things on a day-to-day basis, he needed people like me who were able to sometimes stop his creativity, say, wait a minute, we can't change this. Let's continue the way we are, so that he focuses more on the future and we focus more on the now as we move towards the future that he has plotted. Yeah, he was an amazing man. Conte was an amazing man.
Do you think he fully achieved his dream that I wanted to restore Amakhosi Arts Theatre, writing plays about Matabeleland, writing plays about Lial? Do you think he fully achieved his dream?
He was just at the door of achieving his dream. I remember when we were still young at Amakhosi, Conte had the chance of going to the US, and when he was at the US, he met a number of black actors and looked at the political setup there, the economic setup, the development of the black industry, and he stumbled upon Apollo Theatre. The brief was that the blacks were shut out of the mainstream arts in that part of the world. And so instead of crying, they decided to create their own home. So they started with the theater. The theater developed into a TV channel and so on and so forth, which is the model that Amakhosi eventually took up. When we started theater in the 80s, you were not allowed to book Stanley Hall, for example, for more than 3 days because it was thought to be a community theater. So you couldn't do block booking. But we wanted to do festivals in Musa, one of the festivals that we did. And there's no way you just book for 1 day and go away. Then it's not a festival. So it took us years to convince council that it's possible for us to book this thing for a month. We can construct our sets there, we can bring in international acts, we can do amazing work. When eventually they agreed, we then started to create a home for the arts. But in the back of our minds, we knew that Stanley Hall was not our home because it's a community facility. That's how we then went to Aberdeen and we got to a place called the Lemon Tree. It's a cultural center in Aberdeen. We copied that template and we brought it home. We spoke to the city fathers. Babunduwe was very instrumental in this. That's when we were given land to build at Amakosi Cultural Center. So you can see that was the first step where artists are creating a home for the arts, just like football as a home at BF. So we created that space. And the next step, according to the Apollo template, was to come up with a radio station. So we started with a community radio station where we put speakers at the cultural center. We were able to broadcast locally, play music, have a DJ, and so on and so forth. It was very exciting. We then went on to do Saturday Live, with partnership with ZTV, and that developed into Skies Metro. Skies Metro into Kiona. But at the time when he was setting up Kiona, that's when he was called to the Lord. And yes, he has a sense of where we wanted to go to. He really touched where we wanted to go to, but he really didn't get the enjoyment of running those things and seeing those things flourishing. But he was an amazing man.
Yeah, I recall one story that is often told by many people in the arts sector. A journey by bus from guys coming from Harare, you and Conte coming from Harare to Bulawayo. Instead of talking about social stuff, you went down to business, talk about having a serious meeting. Maybe speak to us about what was in his heart in terms of the current arts sector as compared to the 80s, then the theater, and compared to now.
Okay, Conte always believed in not just jumping on stage to perform, not just writing a beautiful piece of art. He believed in creating an arts industry that is viable. And to do that, you need to bring in the academic side of things. You need to break down your theater into technical arts, into management arts, into performing arts. When you do that, you then start to groom young people, those who say, I want to be on stage. You teach them how to act, the science of acting. You teach them the history of acting. You upskill them. Then there are those who say, I want to create the table that the actor is going to use, or the suit that the actor is going to wear. That's your technical arts now. Or somebody says, I want to put the light that are going to shine on the actor, or the sound that would make the actor audible. Those are the technical arts now. You are creating that. Over and above that, you go to the management arts, where people are now thinking in terms of policy. How do we interface with other stakeholders, with government, with local authorities, with NGO world, with the commercial world? How do we come to a point where we have a win-win exchange? Because for a long time, the artist was viewed as somebody who, when the politician comes to Bulawayo, you're put in a bus, go and perform at the airport. You're not given any money because we're giving you exposure. We don't eat exposure. That's the reason why government is paying the highest today in Zimbabwe in terms of the galas, because they've been taught that you can't just bring artists to perform for nothing. And government is doing a great job in that direction. Everyone who performs on the gala, they get good money, more money than what they make in their own shows. So this is the development that Conte always envisaged. The policy, a formulation, he was a very big part of that. He actually was in the national committee that crafted the cultural policy that we have today. Those were things that really excited him, where you are creating not just a good play, but a good industry. Yeah.
We grew up watching the likes of Osticha, Sihlangu Dlodlo, Kola Kuphela. You know, we used to look forward to watch these programs on our TVs. Do you think now we're still consuming more of our local products, or do we have the quality of our products? Is it in proper quality in terms of what we're producing now, in terms of our theatre, in terms of our soaps?
You see, The problem with one Zimbabweans, but more specifically with technology, is that technology gives people access to industries that are way more developed than your own. When that happens, then people start comparing what you are doing in your infancy with what other people are doing in their maturity. So when that happens, people then choose to watch FA football, EPL, and not watch Highlanders. If there's a game at 3, they'd rather sit at home. And so maybe government needs to adopt the Chinese way of doing things, where you shut out Google, you shut out all these things, and we work with what we have in Zimbabwe. I know it sounds crude, it sounds dictatorship-like, but that is what has made China grow. China shut the world out, and they developed their own products. Now China is the leader in the technology world. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes a strong will. So to answer you, yes, we are doing a fantastic work, but we can't compare to even South Africa because of the economy, because of the financing that goes in there and other factors. But we still need to give the local arts a chance. Look at Nigeria. When the Nigerian movies started, we were all laughing them off. But somebody to stick out with it until it developed. Now it's something to talk about. So it needs a bit of patience, but we are on the right track.
Guys, if you're just joining us, we're live today on Facebook. We're live streaming on Facebook. I see your comments there. I see your questions to Mr. Dlodlo. I'm going to read them later on the show. This is the Civic Forum. My name is Brighton Ncube, and I'm joined by Highlanders CEO, that's Sihlangu Dlodlo, this morning. Now, Mr. Dlodlo, you've been in the arts sector. You moved to agriculture. You moved to corporate, right? Now we're in soccer now. What can you say you've learned from the agriculture, from arts that are applying now in soccer?
Okay, I've always been in agriculture at a small scale. I grew up in Makokoba, but I always visited a rural home, school holidays once in a while, and I've always had this love for nature. When I stopped working, when I took my package from INSCO and I didn't want to come and stay in town, I set up a small garden, and there's something peculiar about marketing and agriculture. What is peculiar is that in marketing, I was trained to visit a customer, nurse a customer, see what is happening to the customer, and help the customer to make money. When you do agriculture, it's exactly the same thing. When you put your seeds, you need to visit, you need to do scouting. Visit each plant, talk to each plant, discover what it needs. Is the drip line not giving it sufficient water? Is the fertilizer too close to the roots is going to burn the plant? Why is it not flowering? Why is it not growing? Are the weeds around it? So there's this close relationship between marketing and agriculture, and that's the part, that's the bit that I truly enjoy about agriculture. When you put in a seed, you water it, you fertilize the soil, you watch it grow, and one day you really enjoy sitting at a table and saying, this is what has culminated in all the work that I have done. So it's all about nurturing. That has been the very big part of my life. By training, by the way, I'm a high school teacher. So even when I was in my youth as a young teacher, I nurtured young people. There are people that can stand up and say, this man contributed this to my life, over and above the APC in the classroom. So this nurturing is part of me, and it's something that I truly and honestly enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. So when I move from industry to the arts, to agriculture, and now to football, it's still the same nurturing aspect that I'm pursuing. Yeah.
Speaking of nurturing plants and also looking at each plant, right? Also, it's been it's having a dry spell for many years now, over 10 years now. No trophies at Highlanders. Now we're the CEO of Highlanders. Where are we missing it, babes? Where are we missing the Highlanders in terms of bringing the trophies home, bringing the cup to Bulawayo?
Okay, this is how I view things. I think that question should have been asked to Brighton Ncube, who is the sports director. He's the man whose job it is to come up with the philosophy of Highlanders that enables Highlanders to win trophies. The CEO looks at the business side of Highlanders. I want to focus, while I want us to win the championship, while I want us to go and conquer Africa, those are good things to do. But those are a result of a Highlanders whose systems are functioning properly in terms of how do we receipt, how do we withdraw money, how do we invest, how do we grow our investment, how do we come up with programs that benefit the players, how do you come up with the kind of culture that enables a player who has played for Highlanders to one day be a businessman or self-sustaining after their footballing days. That for me is what the CEO is about. Yeah. It is about institutional development and growth, which should trickle down to trophies and league games, but it's not primary for me.
So where are we missing in terms of business side of it? Where are we missing it in terms of that inspiring the players to trickle into bring trophies to Highlanders, to Bulawayo and Highlanders? Where are we missing in terms of business side now?
Okay, where we're missing it is it's more on the. See, there's this phrase in Zimbabwe, which that is what is killing football in Zimbabwe. You don't need to muntu webhora for everything football. Sometimes you need a corporate person. Sometimes you need a lawyer. Sometimes you need a doctor. You understand? So, when it comes to Highlanders and where we're missing it, I think Highlanders is the leader in football in terms of trying to do the correct thing. The emergence of a CEO at Highlanders is a sign that Highlanders is saying, over and above thriving to win trophies, which we know is the preserve of the coaches and the technical team, we also need to grow commercially. We need to grow institutionally. And that's where the CEO comes in, to grow that part of the Highlanders business, the football business, yeah, which must fit into the football side of Highlanders. So I wouldn't say we're missing it. I would say we are incapacitated at the moment in terms of investment. The sponsorship that we're getting is a very good thing. We really appreciate it. But I, as an entrepreneur, believe that it is incorrect for us to get a sponsor to pay our salaries. When you do that, it means you're not running a viable business. It's not self-sustaining. So, a sponsor should come and buy a Mercedes-Benz for our players, the luxuries. Because as a business, we're able to take care of the basics of keeping an institution afloat. But that's not happening in Zimbabwe in general because the football industry has not been developed to be self-sustaining. And the people that are killing the football industry are the football clubs themselves. When a club goes to a player whose contract is 6 months to go and says, don't sign with your club, we'll sign you at the end of 6 months so that you come for free. They really don't understand that they are killing the source of profitability. Because a football club should, among other things, the measure should be the trade of players, buying and selling players. So if we as Highlanders then tell FC Platinum, a player, that don't sign so that we take you for free, that means we are denying FC Platinum the investment that they put in the player. And those are the things that are killing football. We should get to a point where football clubs agree that if a player comes to us as a free agent, it means there's something wrong with the player. Either we're giving you a sick contract or we don't want you. Once we get to that point, clubs are going to be profitable. Clubs are going to produce good players. And they would know that when a player leaves, there's money that comes to the club. It balances the equation. It makes business sense. It's the correct thing to do.
You agree with me, Mr. Dlodlo, saying Highlanders is one of the oldest and biggest teams, most followed teams in Zimbabwe, right?
Yes.
Home and beyond, out of the country, most followed team, one of the oldest teams, actually in 2 years' time, 100 years. In terms of investments, what's in your heart in terms of what you want to do as CEO from here going forward to celebrate that brand, Highlanders?
I do have dreams. But some of the dreams I need to share with my bosses and sell them to the membership. But for me, the next 2 years, I'd like to set up the business side of Highlanders, starting with the retailing aspect. We are losing a huge opportunity of monetizing the Highlanders brand. We've come this far. We don't have regalia, for example. It's one of the most embarrassing things for me as CEO. If there's anything that embarrasses me, it is the thought that I've been at Highlanders. It's 4 months now, 5 months now, and there's no regalia. That is failure. I can't run away from that. We need to set up a shop where we sell regalia, where we sell other merchandise, because football clubs internationally would make more than 60% of their money through merchandise and such kind of sales. So we are moving towards opening a small shop and selling our own things. And then we'll grow that online, grow that to other physical shops all over the world. One of our sponsors has promised us that they have shops in the airports that we can make use of. We need to find a way now as entrepreneurs. Where do we get the initial investment that is going to give us the stock that we're going to use to put in the shops and the money to market those products so that we make money out of them? So that for me is the target I've set for myself as CEO, to say if in the next year we don't have a shop selling Highlanders, I'd rather put in my resignation, because I would have failed this great institution.
Yeah. Some of the comments coming through right now, someone's asking about the replicas that we're speaking about now. Where are the replicas? Where are the jerseys? And also someone's asking about seeing these replicas at flea markets, but selling these replicas at flea markets by some corners and street pavements. Are these people registered by Highlanders to sell these replicas, flea markets, pavements? Is Highlanders aware of those people selling those replicas?
We are aware of those people selling replicas, because they are openly advertising, but it is absolutely and totally illegal. We have not sanctioned anyone to do that. Nobody is doing that on our behalf. We're not even getting a cent from that illegal operation. But now here is the issue. How do you create a vacuum in the market, and when somebody fills it up, you pick up sticks and you want to bash them? I think as an institution, as a person, as a man, I feel I need to put my house in order. I need to be selling replicas, the correct ones myself. And then I can point a finger and say, hey, when I can't buy, usenza so. I'm not saying it's legal what they're doing, but I'm saying I don't have moral confidence to stand up and start stopping people from selling those things before I have set up the proper replicas to be sold. So for me, I need to do the correct thing. Then I can point out at those that are doing the wrong thing.
Over the past years, I've been attending. I'm a member of Highlanders, actually. I've been
Are
attending.
you?
Yeah, dry standing with Highlanders. Over the past years, I've been attending these meetings, these annual general meetings. We've been speaking about each of the mining claims, right? Gold mining claims and so on. What's the update around the issue of the mining claim at Highlanders?
Okay, the lessons learned from the past experience is that mining is a highly technical area, number one. Number two, mining is a highly capitalized venture, and maybe we have not been ready on those two fronts. So the license expired. We are in the process of renewing it. We're in the process of finding a technical partner who understands mining, who is already in mining, so that we can, when this thing takes off, it should take off properly. So we need a bit of capital to inject, but the capital is not the problem because there are so many financing models that we can use. We can get some people to buy shares into this, or we are better off sometimes owning 10% of 100 than owning 100% of 0. So we are in the process of redoing the mining venture differently, hopefully correctly. Yeah.
Now, there's been a lot of debate. If I join these WhatsApp groups, I know I'm part of the channel, the Highlanders channel, WhatsApp group, different WhatsApp platforms, speaking about Highlanders now. People always debate about this issue of saying the roles of the CEO, the roles of the chairman, the board, and so on. Maybe explain to us, Mr. Dlodlo, the day-to-day running of Highlanders. With the board, right, we have the chairman, we have the CEO. Who runs Highlanders? Speak to us about the day-to-day running of Highlanders and what the board does in Highlanders.
Okay. At Highlanders, we have two boards. One is called the committee, the other is called the board. And their roles are very, very clear. And there is no confusion there. The only person who can bring confusion is the CEO. It's me. I can come and lie to people that so and so is doing this and this and this. But every man must be measured by the fruits of their labor. As a CEO, my job is to run the operations. The executive committee sets the policy within which the CEO is supposed to operate. So there's no confusion there. Of course, it's easy for me to dwell on personality issues. Obviously, the executive committee, they have personalities just like I have a personality. You may have personality overlaps here and there, but they're not the major issue. The major issue is that the executive committee's work is clearly cut out. The CEO's work is clearly cut out. I know there is talk of amending the constitution to give the CEO more power. That's a very plausible thing to talk about. But we must always remember that the current problem that we have, the one we're trying to solve, is not a constitutional crisis. It's a personality problem. Yeah. Even if you put all the job description of the CEO on the constitution, if there's a personality within the executive that wants to overstep, they will always overstep. So we need to separate the personality issues and the structural technical issues. Executive committee's work is cut out. It's clear. They set the policy. The CEO drives the operations and reports to the executive committee. The CEO is mandated by the executive committee He reports to the executive committee. So there shouldn't be any competition there.
So there's no interference between all these three?
I don't know what interference means. See, that's where I have a problem. Because if the executive committee is mandated to run Highlanders according to the Highlanders constitution, and they set the policy, when they then come down, because the CEO possibly is not following the policy to the letter, is that what we're calling interference?
But are you aware of the audio that was circulating of some member of the executive who was speaking about the interference between the CEO and the chairmanship? Are you aware of that audio? That was highly reported on newspapers.
Yes, I'm aware of that audio. And the questions that Zimbabwe needs to be asking themselves is, those two people that are supposed to have been talking to each other, were they supposed to be talking to each other? Yes, they are, because they are both in the executive committee. Who in their workplace doesn't talk to a colleague about work issues? I think that was a private conversation about two people in the executive who were one was raising concerns they have about the way it's working. We cannot then take a private conversation and put it in public platforms, because it becomes morally incorrect. Unless we are saying an executive member is talking to somebody who's outside the executive, then we can talk of. But that conversation, I don't want to get into it, because for me, it was private and it should remain as such.
Guys, if you just join us, we're live on Facebook. If you have any comments or contributions, please do pass your comments there. I'm going to read them to Mr. Dlodlo. There is the CEO of Highlanders. So if you have any questions around how Highlanders is run, what's happening in Highlanders, please do pass your questions there. I see someone's asking about the liquor license to say, when are we going to buy alcohol from our stadiums? Do you want to respond to that one?
Yes. I know there were reports that Highlanders is applying for a liquor license. What we need to apply for first is premises within the stadium. We get a lounge, or we get a canteen that can sell. Something that we can rent or lease for a season or more. That then allows you to apply for a liquor license, because the regulations pertaining to liquor license are that you must have premises that are leased or owned. You must have certain facilities like toilets and so on. There's specific things that are looked at, and the person running must be of good standing. You shouldn't have a criminal record and so on and so forth. Currently, at Baba Fields, we rent the stadium for a day. So you can't get a liquor license that runs for the season when you have rented for a day, because then it means when Highlanders is at home, we can sell the beer and use our license. What about when Dynamos is at home at PF, whose license is going to be used? So there are those issues that come up that need to be addressed, and I think it's going to be a process. But in terms of generally buying liquor, you still can buy liquor in the stadium. Remember, we are sponsored by Delta. They make the best brew. It is you who make Castle Great, so beer is there in the stadium. But it's the containers now. There's draft beer. It should be in tumblers, so that after drinking you don't throw your pocket at the CEO because a player has missed a penalty. So that's the balance that needs to happen.
I see Highlanders has been doing some of the workshops for their players. I know the past weeks they've been doing financial literacy program for their players. As someone who's coming from the corporate sector with a marketing background, what are some of the workshops that are trying to inculcate into the players in terms of not political ground, but they have, I've seen some of the players, former players at times, stranded, donations. What are some of the issues that are going to push as the CEO of Highlanders to say, let's try to groom our players outside the football pitch?
Yeah, this training that you're talking about, it's one of the things. Remember, I spoke about nurturing as being a very big part of who I am. I believe that we should find common ground with our players, where one, we treat them with respect, number one. Number two, where one, we allow them to be adults. Because sometimes we don't allow our players to be adults. We think it is normal that when they play on Sunday, then they can do whatever they want on Monday. Football is highly specialized. We need to teach them to program their time. We need to teach them to control their lifestyles. There's certain things that young men of their age can happily do, which they can't do because of the profession that they chose, especially because the football profession, at most, the lucky ones, it's 15 years. Otherwise, it's less than that. So you need to maximize and make the correct investment in terms of the commercial investment and the career investment. Are you going to start your coaching? Are you going to start your whatever education? Are you going to go back to school and get your O-levels if you don't have O-levels, or your degree if you don't have a degree? What are you doing while you play football to prepare yourself for the day after your feet get tired? Yeah. Because the feet will get tired. That's what we're trying to drive. We're trying to drive to a situation where each player takes responsibility of their destiny while the sun shines, so that on the rainy day, they are safe. Nobody likes to see anyone suffering after their career. I remember when I left INSCO, I didn't have a fear that I will walk or I prepared for my departure. It's one thing that we need to teach our people. This is the reason why we're running these workshops. We're also dealing with the mental health of the players, because sometimes we blame these players when they behave in a manner that we don't accept, without considering that they are in a boiling pot. It's not easy to play for Highlanders, where a small mistake, you have how many people in Zimbabwe? 15 million. 15 million people, all that support Highlanders, because 15 million people. Even Dynamo supporters support Highlanders. They will insult you. So when a player makes a mistake, before the crowds kick the player kicks himself. So when the crowd kicks the player, it's a second dose and a third dose and a 7 million dose of kicking. And not every player has the strength, mental strength, to be able to deal with that. So this is why we then talk about mental health. What is it that we can do? The other big issue about mental health in football is that sometimes our football in Zimbabwe has fame without fortune. That is a very dangerous situation, because when you are known to play for Highlanders, everyone thinks you are rich. You're supposed to have a car, but the money that we pay you doesn't allow you to do these things. And so it's easy to make up and get into beer, get into drugs, and so on and so forth, to try and create a hermitage, to run away from the reality that I have fame, I don't have fortune. So we teach our young people every day to be able to reconcile with the reality of their situation and find it in their hearts to say, even the 15 cents that I have, if I use it properly, it can grow to be $1.50 next week. That is the primary objective of the trainings that we're trying to do. Yeah.
Earlier, when I said the Highlanders is the most followed team in Zimbabwe and also the oldest team in Zimbabwe, right? If every Sunday you go to Highlanders there, to PF there, you see Mpankwe and Soweto, people are there coming up to pay their $3 and so on. But comes the AGM, you see a few people coming there with carrying their cards. So the issue of attendance at matches and also the issue of card carrying members is different. The number is different. How can you make the young people go and get their cards to Highlanders and become members of Highlanders? Those who are going to Soweto, those who are going to Mpankwe, how can you make them love the Brighton Highlanders and have cards to Highlanders?
Okay, we at the beginning of the year we did a retreat and we formulated a strategy for the next 3 years for Highlanders. One of the major, in fact, two of the major aspects of that strategy that it deals with the question you're asking me is youthifying Highlanders. Yeah. Youthifying Highlanders means trying to attract. We know we already have the older generation supporting Highlanders, but what is it that we're doing to get the young people to come in? Cricket did a very good job. Cricket stole all the young people from us. If you look at Kaizer Chiefs in South Africa, they did a very good job of that. You see pictures. It's young people. They made Kaizer Chiefs fashionable. Even though Kaizer Chiefs is not winning as much as Mamelodi Sundowns, but young people believe in it. So we also want to youthify Highlanders. What is it that we're doing to youthify Highlanders? We are trying to engage them more on the social media spaces because that's where they belong. That's where they spend their leisure time. So we try and grab them at that point. We also need other activities to happen, like getting the chapters, the Highlanders chapters, to youthify, to bring in young people, to run those chapters. And then the second strategic item that we have is technological advancement. We should use more of technology because that is what young people are attracted to. It's not a good thing that even our AGMs are...
old people.
Yes, but not only that, they're just localized to here. Shouldn't we have even our voting coming from people should be able to vote online, for example?
Yeah.
We can't even sell a T-shirt online at the moment. So in terms of technology, artificial intelligence, what is it that we're doing as a club to grow in that direction? Because that is the direction that the youth are drunk in. So if we need them, if we want to catch the youth, we need to catch them at a thing that has caught them. And artificial intelligence technology is what is big with young people.
Yeah. So now how can I be a member of Highlanders now? I'm watching the show this morning. I want to be a member of Highlanders. I want to buy a card. I want to be a full member and go standing with Highlanders. How can I do that?
Where are you?
Someone's in Bulawayo, someone's in Harare, someone's in South Africa, diaspora. How can they?
All right, we have chapters almost all over the world where you can link up. I wish before we started this, I would have given you addresses. Then you would be sharing them with our audiences. But if you're in Bulawayo, you come to our offices. We now have a card printing machine, so you can do all these things without even coming to the office. Our email address is highlandersfc@gmail.com. You can write to us. We'll tell you the requirements. We'll send you the membership form. You can complete it online and send it back to us with your picture and your payment, and then we can generate your membership card and send it to you. So we are trying to make sure that we are as inclusive as we possibly can. But the chapters are the grassroots structures that we have in the townships, in different cities.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I see your comments, I see your contributions. I'm going to read your comments as well as we wrap up our show this morning. I'm joined by the CEO of Highlanders, that's Mr. Sihlangu Dlodlo. They're unpicking and understanding more the ins and outs of Highlanders and what is going on at Highlanders there. Now, in 2 years' time, also 100 years, right? What are the plans for celebrating this big brand, Toyga Machoban? How do you celebrate that in Dala, 100 years' time? What do we do to celebrate the brand Highlanders?
Okay, we are approaching this celebration from different points of view. For starters, You can separate the history of Highlanders with the history of the Ndebele Kingdom. You can separate it with the history of the struggle for independence for Zimbabwe. Actually, Highlanders was formed because the Ndebele people wanted to crown their king after the disappearance of King Lopengula. And the settlers would arrest these boys and take them to South Africa. And later on, they would arrest everybody who's in that meeting. So now they said, okay, let's camouflage this. Let's come up with a football team. That's how Highlanders was formed. Yeah. This is why it said it was formed by the grandsons of Lopengula. It was a way of pushing a political agenda, a freedom. So that's why I was saying you can separate that. So in our approach to celebrations, we're going to have the historical side that documents through write-ups and through videos of the road that Highlanders has moved from 1926 to date. We're also going to have the cultural celebrations, which would come from the different districts, and the chiefs would participate in those. And then we're going to have the football side, where we're going to have a festival, invite a few clubs from out of Bulawayo, from out of Zimbabwe, to come in and play, and we celebrate together. We are forming, in fact, there already is a steering committee doing that. The steering committee now needs to come up with subcommittees to deal with different aspects that will fit into this big celebration.
Yeah. Some of the comments coming through this morning, someone's asking about replicas as well. Card members, how much do I pay to get a card? And someone's asking about how do we treat former Highlanders players? They always see them queuing outside the gate. They're trying to enter PF. Some are denied entrance. How are you taking care of former Highlanders players? Maybe respond to those three. Replicas, you've touched on that. Card members, how much are they going to pay?
Ordinary member it's $20. If you are an ordinary member, well paid and subscription in order, after 2 years you choose to be a life member, pay $100. That's on the membership side. In terms of our former players, here's the issue. We need our people to understand that PSL controls to match day activities. It's not Highlanders that employs the people at the gate or decides who comes in. But what PSL has done, they've given out access cards. And those access cards give people the right to walk in. We have made presentations to PSL, and PSL has accepted that our own former players, of course not all of them, we need to find a definition of the
legends,
yes, and we give the names to PSL. They'll generate cards for them, so that when they come in, they don't stand outside and fail to come in.
This thing to say, since 1926, we have had many legends since then up to now. Was 98 years now, right? We have had many former players playing for Highlanders since 1926 up to now. So if you give them free cards, all of them, how are we making money as Highlanders?
This is why I'm saying we need to find a way of defining. Yeah. Not all of them should be able. But that takes us back to financial literacy, to say sometimes we need to capacitate our players when they are playing, so that after playing, they are able to pay their own ticket and come and watch a match. You don't want to look like a beggar after you were my hero. Yeah. Because these young people, they are our heroes. And they have a deep-seated love for football. But we need to capacitate them so that they are able to buy their own ticket into the stadium. Because if we tried to get everyone in, that's when you will also get insults like there were 20,000 people that came in, but 9,000 paid. Yeah. Then you say, it's because our wives and our wives and our other wives would also want to come in for free. Then the players and their wives and their wives and their other wives, it becomes a mess. So we need to find a way. I think while PSL might be unpopular on this, but they've done a great job in trying to control who comes into the stadium. We can talk possibly about the customer service, but in terms of the systems that they've put in place, I think they've done a good job.
Someone's asking about the issue of, I think there was a match, I think the midweek match, the first leg of the season, where you guys hiked prices during the midweek match. And someone's asking why, what criteria are you using to hike the prices for these games? And why do you hike prices for these games?
Okay, the reason why we hike prices is because we want to get a higher turnover, clearly. Now, from a theoretical point of view, when you sit down and say, a midweek game, you look at history, we have had a maximum of 6,000 people, a minimum of 3,000 people. We know that the midweek game will not get anything above 7,000 because it is, unless it's Dynamos, because it's midweek, people are at work. So you then say, how do I maximize? You also know that those who come to the midweek game are mostly people, if they're employed, they are the bosses at work. So it means they can afford to not to be at work, and therefore they can afford to pay an extra $1. So this was the matrix that was used. And what happened on that match is that we got 3,000 people coming into the stadium. So the benefit was that extra that we put in on the ticket price was a small benefit that we got. That came at a time when we really needed every cent as Highlanders. But obviously, we did not explain this clearly and nicely to our supporters. Everyone was very unhappy. We were insulted. It's okay. It's part of the job. We listened. This is why we didn't do it again. Yeah. But from the benefit that you got from that match, we should have been charging, we should have been increasing prices for every midweek game, because it proved to us that you make more money when you do that. That midweek a customer is inelastic in terms of pricing. They don't reduce because you have increased the price, or they don't increase because you have reduced the price. That's the reality of the midweek. But our people, we went to war so that people are free to insult us, even when we think we're doing the correct thing for their correct team. We accept all that. That's why we stopped. But it's a good thing to do. If they allow us next year, we'll do it again.
Again, now on the issue of players, discipline of players, right? Someone saying, what the time they see these players at pubs, right? Everyone spoke about the issue of alcohol and drug abuse. When they see our players at pubs, and also young people see these players as their role models, what are you doing as a club to instill discipline to these players in terms of, even if you say pub, as or whatever, like any crime, what are you doing to these players as a team to inculcate the culture of the principle and well behave and carry the vision they bring forward?
There's a thin rope that we have to balance on. Our supporters are the problem, because they are the ones who take the players to the pub, number one. They are the ones who buy them beer. They are the ones who take pictures with them when they're holding a glass of beer. And they are the ones that share that picture. So you then say, but why are we doing this? I personally don't drink beer, but I don't think there's anything wrong with an adult drinking beer, as long as they're doing so in moderation. And players are human beings. They are adults. We need to treat them like adults. They should have a moment where they can go out and unwind as well. But the health side of it says they shouldn't drink too much. Yeah. But when they get there, it's you, the supporter, who buys them more beer than they should be drinking. You take pictures with them, and then you share these pictures. And then you turn around and say, look at these people. Guys, why not being fair on these players? Let's be fair. Excuse me. Let's be fair on them. Let's treat them like adults. We have been talking to our players to say, be careful when somebody says they want to take a picture with you. What are they going to do with that picture? We have had instances where you are sitting at a stadium next to a very pretty woman, and you don't know this pretty woman, you're just sitting there. They will take a picture of you and they will circulate it, and your wife will think whatever she thinks, and the husband of this pretty woman will think whatever they think. There's a lot of mischief going on. As a people, we need to be honest in the things that we do. When you walk into a pub as a support, what are you doing that is responsible towards this player? I think that's my answer.
Over the past 8 years, Highlanders has paid over $95,000 in terms of being fined by PSL for violence, right? I know this isn't even, supporters haven't done anything like that. And you guys have been carrying this message of this campaign to say no to violence. Speak to us more about that, to say, what can you say to the supporters at home around the issue of no to violence at soccer matches?
Right. The biggest challenge about football is that it is an emotional sport.
Yeah.
If anyone tries to say they can totally do away with violence in football, it's a good thing to try, but yeah, it's going to take. This is why even today in Europe, there's still violence. I'm not using Europe as a standard, because we should be the standard. We're all human beings. There's still violence. They wear their cameras and so on and so on and so on and so on. There's still violence there. But still violence is not good. So when we come to our stadium, those that perpetrate violence do so out of emotion. They do so out of love for their club. And because they also know that what they're doing is incorrect, they have to find a reason why they're doing it. That's why we then blame the referees, we blame this, we blame this, we blame this. But at the end of the day, the education that we should be taking out to our supporters is that there's certain things that you can't control. Let the ref do his work. If it does a bad piece of work, we should always remember that the laws of the game start by saying, the referee's decision is final. No matter how wrong, you can't change the ref's decision by complaining as a player or by throwing a missile as a supporter. So when you get to complain what is called dissent as a player, or when you get to throwing a missile, you must know that it's a futile effort. It's going to be viewed as not corrective because it doesn't correct anything. You see, this is the reason why the first retreat that we had with our players, we called in the referees to come and talk to them about the laws of the game, talk to them about especially dissent, to say, according to the laws of the game, if a referee says offside or foul, and you come rushing to the ref and you complain, the referee has a right to show you a yellow card. Even when you're the captain, because captains don't get special dispensation because they're captains. So we have taught our players this, and we can see an improvement in that area. But the greatest improvement that we have seen is in our supporters. I was impressed yesterday. After we thanked the people, and there was an offside call that an assistant made, and people felt he was wrong. On any day, there could have been pitch invasion. On any day, we could have had violence. But you could see the crowds restraining themselves. Maybe because we thanked them, maybe because of the maturity, maybe because of the messages that have been going across. But we want to commend our people sitting in Pankwen for the self-control that they displayed yesterday. May this kind of behavior continue, because it makes football a family event. It allows us to bring our granddaughters and our grandsons to the stadium and not fear tear gas. And hopefully at some point, the police will stop bringing dogs to our stadiums and tear gas, so that everyone is peaceful, because that's where fair play starts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I know we can talk all day. I still have many questions to ask you, but we're running out of our time, right? And I'm going to hold you to that issue that you said replicas are coming. If they don't come, under your tenure, you're going to resign as opposed to CEO. But
I didn't say that.
You said that in the beginning of the show.
No, I said opening a shop.
Yeah, but still on the replicas.
We can open a shop without replicas. You can sell other merchandise.
What are you selling?
Other merchandise.
Okay, cool. You've been in the corporate sector, you've been in the art sector. I take you as a legend, right? We don't give you flowers every day. So I want you to give you your flowers today. If you still smell those flowers. When it's been said and done about Mr. Dlodlo, how should you remember you?
I want to be remembered as a fat, ugly man who tried to do the best that he could in the time that he was given. The bulk of my life, I've tried to uplift people around me. I've tried to do things that have a positive impact on my society. And I hope that the Lord will give me a bit more years so that I can continue to doing this. Because when everything is said and done, we cannot be great unless and until the people around us achieve the greatness. That's how I want to be remembered.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time, for joining us on site this morning. It was a live interview. Try to run away from some questions, but we'll try to answer the questions. Thanks so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Brighton. God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless society.
Well, you've been watching the Civic Forum. My name is Brighton Ncube, and my guest for this morning is and was Sihlangu Dlodlo, the Atos CEO. Quite interesting interview, answering questions around Highlanders, the future of Highlanders, and what he seeks to do under his tenure as Atos CEO. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If I didn't read your comment or question, please bear with us. Maybe next time you'll come again for another interview. Guys, if you have a blessed Monday, do enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Brighton. It's bye for now.